So let's get started.
All right, let's do it.
Come on in. All right, well, welcome everybody to our panel. We're so happy to be here at AmericanaFest. Thanks to everyone who's volunteering and organizing. None of us are from Nashville. Raise your hand if you also are not from Nashville. All right, we brought the outsiders in today.
Here's one
cool. All right, well, we're going to talk about music cooperatives. That's why you're here. We're hopefully going to answer some questions you might have about what a co-op is, but also why we need co-ops in music. And we'll get started with some intros, a little bit about us. We'll get to those questions about co-ops. And then we want to leave you with some actionable items about the tools, the platforms, the groups that you can tap into if you're interested in being part of the cooperative movement.
Can I just ask, how many of y'all know what a co-op is? Can I see a raise of hands? Okay.
We're not going to ask you to define it, so don't be shy.
And is there anybody here that's in a co-op? Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome.
Great.
Food co-op.
A food co-op is a co-op. Yeah,
it's important.
Yeah. The representatives here today are me from my band Strange Heavy, Mirlo, which is a digital audio and sales platform, Death is a Business, and we're really sorry to actually say that Olive from Dark Matter Collective can't be with us today, our only actual Nashvilleian panelist, because her cat Towns died today. Oh. So we told her that we would take a moment of silence to send her big love and to wish Old Man Towns well, crossing that Rainbow Kitty Bridge. Thanks. All right, so hi, I'm McKenzie. I'm your panel moderator today. I'm here from Ithaca, New York. I'm a cellist, as you can see in that photo. I'm a singer. I have two bands, Strange Heavy, which is what I'll focus on mostly today because we are organized as a cooperative entity, and a newer band called Mama Look, and you can find both of those bands on social media. My day-to-day work is in cooperative support. I have a consulting business called The Worker Place, and I work with all kinds of co-ops, specifically worker-owned co-ops mostly, on helping them get set up and understand what it means to make decisions together, to share profits, and to educate people around the reasons that we need cooperatives. I'm really committed to the solidarity economy and cooperative economics because we all know that the way stuff isn't working for most of us. A member and a peer advisor with the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives, and I'm also a founding member of Launch Cooperative, which is a platform to help people get their co-op started. And I've been part of some really cool artist co-op collective residency programs in the past few years. One was called TribeWorks. We were a co-op of artists who were freelancers receiving guaranteed income from an amazing program in New York State. And we were able to collectively decide what we were doing with that income and the projects that we wanted to do. And Art Farm is an artist residency that's focusing on regeneration and climate action. And I would love to talk to any of you about any of those things. So after the show, please say hi. And like I said, this is my band, Strange Heavy. We are formed as a co-op, which means that we make decisions together. A lot of people who are musicians and in bands make decisions together. You're writing songs, you're deciding where you're gonna tour, right? Like bands, creative people, creative projects are sometimes inherently cooperative. When I say that we are a co-op band, what I mean is that we are actually formed as an entity with cooperative bylaws that details very specifically how one can become a member, not just in the band, but in the business. So also support systems, managers, sound technicians, those folks can be part of it. And those bylaws detail how we share finances, how we share decision making. And also we're just a really cool band. And so I hope that you'll listen to us. And I'm gonna pass it over to Alex, who is the co-founder of Mirlo. And there you can see Strange Heavy on this awesome new platform.
Thank you. My name is Alex Rodriguez. It's a real pleasure to be here with you all talking about cooperation and particularly this project that I've been working on for the last couple of years. It's called Mirlo. You can see the URL there, mirlo.space. It grew out of conversations that were happening among some friends who were music enthusiasts, who were software developers, and also musicians who were trying to put our heads together to actually prototype alternatives to particularly the ways that digital distribution systems are just give a raw deal to artists, right? And so we thought that one of the ways to move in a new direction would be to try to build it from scratch and make sure that we cooperate and keep collective, commonly held ownership of the thing that we build together as we go. And so the first step we thought was to kind of technically reverse engineer something that already exists. So, as a platform, it's very similar to what you can do with Bandcamp. It's designed to be able to be a marketplace for digitally distributing your own music and actually having people buy it, right? So the money goes to you, and you get to decide how much goes to the platform. It's not even a standard cut. It's artist. The artist decides, you can give us 0%, you can give us all of it. It's up to you. That's how Mirlo works, basically. But the work of building Mirlo has really been about finding the other people that want to build that new thing and do it differently. And so that's what we've been exploring together for about 2 years at this point. Looking forward to talking more about it.
And something I want to add that's special about a co-op is that Alex is saying the artist on the platform can determine how much money goes to the platform. And then there's another set of decision-making where all the workers of the platform are deciding what happens with that money. And this is super relevant because we're going to look at some common examples of where that's not the case later. But the workers and the artists are central to decision-making on Mirlo. And Sonia Erika.
Hey y'all, my name is Sonia Erika and I am part of Death as a Business. We're a nomadic band. We make music with musicians in different countries. We started in Mexico, then Peru and Brazil. And all of these are our motherlands, and it's really been a blessing to be able to collaborate with other musicians. So we're a little bit different than Strange Heavy because we do not have an official LLC that makes us or marks us as a co-op. But what I believe a co-op is, and which you will also see coming up, is shared resources, shared labor, and shared decision-making. And so when we act in this way as a collective, for me, that is acting as a co-op and living as a co-op, which is very important for me at this moment because, everything that's happening. I'm so super excited to be here with y'all today and talk about alternatives to what currently exists because a different world is possible. And it takes all of us to make that happen. So thank you all for being here today.
And Death as a Business just very recently released a new album I encourage you all to check out.
Yes, Spring Moon. If you scan that QR code, it shall take you right to the Mirlo page. And yeah, it's a really beautiful psychedelic album, so hope you enjoy it.
There it is on Mirlo.
That's right.
So we're walking the walk. We've got our music up on alternative platforms, and we hope that when you go to listen to at least our bands, that you'll go to Mirlo to listen.
Yes.
So let's get into this question of what is a co-op? We're kind of skirting around it. Oh wait, dark matter. So yes, Olive can't be with us today, but Olive is a representative of Dark Matter Collective. Does anyone know about this spot in Nashville? It's an all ages, I think kind of DIY punk type place. None of us have been there yet. We're so thankful that the conference hooked us up with Olive and Dark Matter because when they saw our proposal for cooperation in music, they immediately thought of Dark Matter. And so we're really happy to be connected. And I know it conflicts with the awards ceremony at the Ryman tonight, but we're actually, all three of us are going to be performing tonight at Dark Matter Collective.
Come through 7 p.m.
Yeah, doors at 7, music at 8. It's going to be really, really special. But Dark Matter is collectively managed, and it feels really important, even though Olive can't be here, to still speak about venues as a really important part of why we need co-ops and how co-ops are helping people to be in solidarity as opposed to exploited. Venues in particular, we were just talking about this yesterday, mid-sized venues all over the country are closing down. For a number of reasons, it's hard for people to spend a lot of disposable income these days. Also, we're seeing trends that younger people are not interested in buying alcohol at bars, which has been the staple commodity that makes a lot of venues money. So we're seeing them close, but we still want spaces to play music and we want spaces to see music. And we know that the collective, cooperative, ethos is something that's going to help them stay alive, in part because of the shared resources and shared responsibilities. So what makes a co-op? Shared resources, shared responsibility, labor, shared decision-making, sharing profit. There's always a buy-in, right? People in a co-op, and when I'm talking about co-ops, I'm speaking about them both as the formalized cooperative entities and also just as collectives of people who are committed to making decisions democratically. And so typically in a co-op, there's some kind of buy-in. And for example, in Strange Heavy, that buy-in is just that you gotta be committed to like our music and our scene. You don't have to pay anything, you just have to be with us for a few months, and we know that we jive and you can become a member of the co-op. And once you're a member of the co-op, then you get to make decisions that could potentially change the trajectory of the business, support the business, and then on the other end, that buy-in awards you profit. So in your food co-op, there might be discounts for you, or maybe a dividend every year. We're probably all even members of like member-based organizations without totally even thinking about it. The Americana Music Association is a member-based organization, and so we're familiar with that type of formula. But what's different about co-ops is that anyone who opts into membership, and it's always optional, is that they actually are an owner. And so what we see typically with businesses, with bands, with labels, with management, is that there is an owner or a board of trustees or some owning class that is making decisions that impacts how every artist on that roster is treated or where they can be promoted. It's impacting where that band tours, etc. So we're really looking to have more agency and autonomy in the way that we act and move through the world as artists and musicians.
That's right. We want to make circles instead of triangles, because obviously triangles have not been working for the past years.
Yeah. So there are tons of types of co-ops in the community. You're probably familiar with food co-ops first and foremost. A lot of people are members of food co-ops, and you think, well, why is it a co-op? Because you pay a membership fee and then you get to vote on things like, should we buy a new location, or who's going to be in the board of directors? That's kind of an easy entry point for a lot of people to become familiar with co-ops. There are housing cooperatives where folks are sharing space that they live. Maybe they're co-owning land, which means that taxes are paid by a group of people, right? There's a lot of financial benefit to the pooling of resources in co-ops. Credit unions are cooperatives. They are member-based cooperative financial institutions. There are schools, consumer co-ops. Organic Valley is a producer co-op, if you're familiar with their dairy products. A bunch of different businesses, yeah, Cabot Cheese. Equal Exchange, the coffee company. What's the chocolate folks? There's a big chocolate one. REI is a consumer co-op, although we are a little wary of them because they're a consumer co-op but not a worker co-op, and their leadership was doing some serious union busting in the past couple years. The workers wanted to unionize, the leadership didn't want it. But because it's a co-op and members get to vote, members voted in favor of workers unionizing.
That's right.
So when we talk about co-ops, we're really talking about at every level, at every layer of decision-making, who's at the table of decision-making. And we believe in that, like the folks who are doing the work are the folks who should own the work. And so if we're making music, we don't want to give the rights to a label. We want the support of a label, but we want to take ownership over what happens to our intellectual property and our creativity. And that's tough to navigate, as some of you can probably imagine. And I'm sure that you're representing a lot of different areas of the music industry in here. And let's just kind of find out for a second, how many of you are musicians?
Oh, nice.
How many of you are industry professionals, like you work for a label or you're a manager? Cool. How many of you maybe are involved in booking or venues? Cool. And how many of you listen to music? You don't listen? Okay. We're all consumers of music, which is why this is really important for all of us, because we have choices to make as consumers about who we're supporting and how we support the artists that we love so much. So the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperatives is the nation's premier group that is providing resources to worker-owned cooperatives, trainings. We've all connected there together. That's the home of where many of us have met. And so according to them, a co-op is defined in a few different ways. At least half of the worker members are owners. Is this from the census?
This is from their website.
Yeah. They do a census every year, which is really exciting, about worker co-ops in the state, and I'll get to that in just a second. But so half of the workers or members are owners in a co-op. You can't say, I'm a co-op, but I'm the only member.
Yes, that's not a co-op.
Members, we call them, we're going to use some language interchangeably too, like worker owners or members or worker members or member employees. It all kind of goes to the fact that the workers are the owners. Worker members have representation. They have the opportunity to nominate and vote for people who represent them on the board. They have the opportunity to be that representation to others on a board. And what's really cool about co-ops is that no matter how you've made your buy-in, if it's like sweat equity or money or some combination or time, you are a member and you get a vote. And we know that that's not the case with money. Usually investors have way more control. We know that owners often have 51% of the shares simply so that they can make all the decisions. In a co-op, truly decisions can't be made legally unless they are made democratically by all of the owners.
And I think this is like the really beautiful but the ugly part of co-ops too, because, you know, co-ops and democracy can seem like such a fantasy. But in reality, it takes a lot of work and action to be a part of a collective and to be a part of a co-op. And, you know, yeah, that's why within our band, it's kind of similar to your band with Strange Heavy. There's a difference between a session musician and then a member of the cooperative, which is somebody that is actually, you know, putting in the work and coming to the meetings and sharing the labor and the decision making, which is different than a session musician, because if you're a session musician, you're just showing up, right? But I think it takes us acknowledging our power as consumers, as band members, as people that are part of this industry to really understand, like, how do we apply ourselves to make this possible, to get our consent? Because I think the next slide is places that haven't asked for consent, right?
It's not. That's where we are. But we can keep this up for a second.
Yeah, that's all I want to say for now.
Well, and what's beautiful about the difficulty of working together and making collective decisions, because it's no, you know, it can be really easy to show up and be told what to do, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to have to think about it. I don't want to have to be the one that's balancing the books of the band. I just want to play music, right? It's really easy to just show up until decisions that are being made impact you negatively. And then you realize, like, wait, I really should have a seat at this table because I'm putting so much time and effort into this.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. It seems to me, just based on my own experience kind of diving into this world and learning all of the ways of actually organizing a business sort of with this collective spirit and commitment, is that there's a learning curve, and the world that at least I want to be participating in, you know, in moving forward, is only possible if we start learning now, you know, because there's a learning curve it's steeper at the beginning, but on the other side of that, once you find people that you vibe with and you've gotten some stuff in writing, that it's not like once you're done running on good vibes, that's when the co-op bylaws are really important. You know, if there's conflict, if there's you know, challenges with accountability, if people aren't showing up in the way that they said they would, but no one's really sure how to do it. We all got together and thought about that ahead of time before we got to that point, and now we can actually do the hard work together, both because we've built the trust, because we're all collectively invested, and then also because we made this commitment at the beginning to do it this way, and to not just fire someone because I can, because I'm their boss, but it's like, oh no, there's actually a process for collective discernment around, like, is this behavior something that we can work towards changing together, or is it something that we need to have a conversation about that leaving? But the way you do it matters so much in terms of the feeling that gets produced by moving through the challenge together, like the bumps, you know. So that's another just piece around sort of why cooperatives. And I think my experience with friends and musicians, both myself as a musician, also with friends, with bands, oftentimes there's no legal formation, or if it is, it's the money people that have the legal stuff all figured out, and that's not our problem. But then when it's just, and that can work for a long time, until it doesn't. And
until you don't get paid.
right, until you don't get paid, until there's conflict in the band that you don't know how to work through because you haven't really thought about it. So that's it's sort of a way of thinking about these things all at the beginning and really making that commitment. Like you said, that buy-in, that initial step is a commitment that then it's like relationship money in the bank for when things get harder later.
I love it when people who are curious about co-ops or even skeptical about co-ops might say like, well, but isn't it really hard to make decisions together? And I'm like, okay, but how hard is it to have a boss that decides things for you that don't align with you or your work, right? And people say, well, but it must be too hard to deal with stuff like conflict. And I'm like, if you know what conflict is, that means that it's present for you, like in any workplace, right? We have the tools. Yeah, conflict is present.
It just happens. Each of us experience conflict probably once a day. And so instead of running away from it and instead of avoiding it, why don't we know how to navigate it in a way that feels gentle and feels good?
And learn together. That's the key thing. This is a vehicle for making that commitment that we're going to figure it out together. We don't know always what's ahead, but if we can say together, like, okay, there's a couple people that I trust that we feel like we can get this started, and then we can create a way to bring other people in and be really clear about it. That allows for things to grow organically.
Yeah. So, all right, that's cool, right? Co-ops are cool, but why? Like, why do they matter? One of the pieces of data that comes out of the U.S. Federation of Worker Cooperative census every year is the average pay ratio, the highest paid worker and the lowest paid worker in a co-op. Year over year, that pay ratio in co-ops is 2 to 1. That means the highest paid worker in the co-op is not making any more than twice as much as the lowest paid worker. We compare that to a standard business in the United States alone, and that ratio becomes something like 450 to 1. And that's the average. That's just the average. And so purely from an economic standpoint, co-ops matter in that regard, right? Because we want to be building systems that recognize and value people, not just as workers, but as people who are working because they're passionate and need to make a living, but they're people first and foremost. And every co-op, of course, has its own mission, but the mission of worker co-ops in general is to provide a dignified life for its members.
Yeah, the purpose is not money. The purpose is us. It's people. And that makes all the difference.
But don't get me wrong, we need money to live. We love
Definitely.
money. We want money, right?
But money is a tool. It's not
a tool.
the destination.
Yeah, and it's only really great to hold if you know that it's not creating suffering for others. That's how we feel as ethical people. Obviously, there are folks out there who don't think that way, like our friend Daniel Ek from Spotify. These numbers may or may not look new or surprising to you.
Yeah, so if some of you may not know, but Daniel Ek is the CEO of Spotify, and he's not even a musician himself, but he's made so much money from our music. And now he's taking that money and he's investing it into the AI and military industrial complex. And so as a listener, as a consumer of music, I personally don't want my money going into that. So this is why it's so important for us now to be a part of an alternative, to really know how we're consuming our music and not just blindly consume because it's easy. And it's like, oh, well, Spotify has all my library. It has all my music. It's like, no, we have to be very conscious of this because as consumers, we are in charge of our future. And we don't recognize that power. I think we give that power so easily away because we feel like, oh, we're just one person. But I'm really happy to be sitting here with Alex, who's the co-founder of Mirlo, which is an alternative to Spotify. And that's exactly what we need. And so McKenzie and I showed you guys, we do have our music on Mirlo. And it's a platform that I feel really good with because on Spotify, somebody has to stream my music 800,000 times for me to buy a cup of coffee. 800,000 times. On Mirlo, I can determine the price. I can determine how much goes to the platform. I consent to all of those terms. And now I may only need 4 strings to buy my cup of coffee, which is great, because who doesn't need coffee every day? I do.
And I think there's also this, we're in an interesting time where, like, I don't know, someone might know this. Is it like 1 million songs or 200,000 songs added to Spotify every day? Was it 200,000?
Like 150 to 250.
150
Someone
to
said million earlier today.
It almost doesn't matter, right? It almost doesn't matter. There are like countless songs every single day being added. And you'll find out that like a lot of them aren't even real musicians, like aren't flesh and blood humans who are creating and toiling and like being together to make that. I actually was hearing, on Instagram, I kept hearing this trending audio. And I was like, what is this? I don't know this artist. And I went to a music platform to look for the artist and very quickly was like, they released 5 albums in 1 year, nothing before 2024. All the photos of this person are a little different and pretty glossy. And I was like, oh my God, this isn't even a person. And they have 20,000 monthly listeners, and everyone who's choosing that audio for their reel is paying some non-living, breathing entity, like person who needs to survive, who's got a whole lifetime of creation behind them. And like there are going to be more and more and more and more of them every day. So this is why. We could have an alternatives to Spotify panel in and of itself, right? Like alternatives to the big corporate masses that control what we listen to. It's not just Spotify, it's really like throughout the industry, how we listen to music, the venues we see music in, the bands that we listen to, how we break into certain scenes, being nominated for awards. Like, we would really love to see the whole industry start to become more populated with cooperativism. And I won't even say that every band has to be a co-op or every label has to be a co-op, but we do want to see more cooperation that puts each individual person every step of the way in the middle of the room, making decisions and making profits. And I think we might have a volunteer who can get us a microphone. I'm hoping that some of you will want to engage with us a little bit. Can you share, please, some vulnerable examples of exploitation you have experienced in music?
I'm actually loud, so.
It's also for the recording, so.
My question to you on this is, how would you feel if an AI band wanted to join your collective, your co-op? Would you accept that?
Who would be applying? Who?
The person that's creating the content, but they're, it's Joe Schmo in his basement in Ohio, but he's telling you that he's Steel Dragon and they've written all these songs, and like you said, they've got 5 albums. How would you feel about that?
Do you want to answer?
I can say this has been an ongoing conversation among the stewards at Mirlo. We have had some AI generated music put up on the platform, and we ended up coming down on we'd rather not. So we're just in part because I think part of the point here with cooperation is that it's also about human relationships, and this is where I see a lot of the overlap between music making and worker cooperation is that when you're playing with someone, it's a feeling that it's something that's happening between you two, right? And in reality, when there's something happening between you and, I don't know, Sam Altman, I guess, when you're talking to ChatGPT, but what that is Sam Altman trying to control your mind and build a data profile on you so that he can get more investment money. And it's not like a conversation, like it's not a human relationship that I want to participate in personally, right? So so that's where we've been. I'm also noticing that that's been a common thing that people who are seeking out alternatives are asking about. And right now, I think there is sort of I guess you could call it like a neo-Luddite movement of people who are like, smash the machines, I am not here for this, what matters is people. I guess there's also the slight little bit of nuance to that I think is important is that there are places where, some of these algorithms and large language models and stuff have made, audio production and certain things like that, like certain tasks that used to be really monotonous in digital audio production can be done a lot more efficiently. I think that one of the problems with this AI thing is that we don't know what we mean when we use the word sometimes. I think like the idea that like I type in a prompt for like, you know, I want a meat band that sounds like this and it spits out some thing is very different than this other set of use cases that ultimately are about the human creativity being served by the tool as opposed to the owners of these tools looking for us flesh and blood humans to serve, to, you know, be grist for the mill of their data mines, you know. And so yeah, Mirlo has definitely been a space where for people, and I will say too that even though that's been our policy, we have had like some big problems of just running a small website because a couple of these bots, someone writes a program that comes and just decides to download all of our data because it's on the internet without asking for us, without even telling us who they are, and all we see is this big spike in traffic that we have to pay for. So this kind of BS is happening all over the internet right now, and music is on the front lines of it, in part because it's digital content that is, thanks to the MP3 format and everything, a much easier file to process just in terms of data size than like a video file. So there's a lot of this happening sort of in the wild west of internet scraping stuff that has been an unpleasant surprise. So we're just trying to step into the field and just do something different.
Yeah, I just want to add to that, sorry. I just want to add to that I do believe in the power of technology, and I do believe in its power to help us create a better world, and especially to take care of Mother Earth. I don't believe we're using it in that way as of the moment. You know, the machines that create all of what is being created for ChatGPT, AI, they're taking up so many resources, so much water, and it's like, what are we gonna do? What are we going to drink when all the water is gone? And specifically with music, with artists pretending or people using AI to make music, something that really bothers me is seeing people like Timbaland, who, you know, at one point was a great artist, amazing. And now he's come out with an AI label with an AI artist who's a young girl. And that really bothers me because it's like, you're a grown man hiding behind a little girl, pretending to be a woman.
Also, how many actual flesh and blood young girls out there would love the opportunity to be backed by someone by Timbaland, you know?
Yeah.
It's because he doesn't have to pay that bot. It, like, so much of it comes down to like the greed and the profit that's being hoarded. You know, you get a few cooperators in the room and we could like go really off on some anti-capitalist stuff, and we can certainly have more chats about the ins and outs. And I personally don't think that we need to demonize technology for sure. And there's a lot of room for like the bleeps and bloops of music too, you know, like what people create is what people create, and it all has value. I think when we see corporations and individuals that already have amassed enough wealth to create something that looks real but isn't real just to generate more wealth, that's a problem. It's a problem for all of us. We should all be kind of upset about it because I think it reduces the quality of the music that we're hearing, and that's frankly just insulting to us as consumers of music.
And as humans.
As humans, yeah.
Just to respond very quickly, and then I'll shut that up. Before Napster, there was a thing called IUMA, and it was the Internet Underground Musicians Archive, and it was owned by a small group of guys in Northern California, and the artist created it, and the artist controlled how much the WAV files in those days were sold for, and it was amazing. And Napster came in and just decimated them. And I'm not anti-technology at all. It's just that they let that horse out of the barn and then went, well, the horse is gone, what are we gonna do? And it was so stupid because it really was this beautiful collective of people that wanted to share their music without a label.
Yeah.
And I think this is an incredible, this could be a great tool for some public stations that have lost funding, you know, as opposed to satellite, which I don't have anything against at all, I love it. But this is another outlet for great music that's created by people, and I really appreciate this panel.
Yeah, thank you so much. I did see your hand, and we'll get to you in a moment. I kind of want to add that something about the roots and the history of co-ops that I think is really important to understand. In the United States anyway, co-ops really became formalized and prevalent for Black liberation after slavery, because freed slaves couldn't get jobs, and we see that now with people returning from prison. And we see it also now with undocumented workers who are not eligible to be employees in this country but can be owners of a company. So we're seeing that among the most vulnerable populations in this country, co-ops are the answer. And I say, if something is the answer for the vulnerable people, it's for all of us to uplift. It's the answer for all of us. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay, you had something to share.
This is unrelated to AI or anything you guys were just talking about.
Great.
Excellent.
Yeah. Is it about exploitation in music?
Yeah. Well, I was just curious about like the co-op process, the voting, or things. If you guys had experiences of voting someone or something out.
Totally. And that's where the bylaws and the membership manual is important, because when you choose your people to exist in a co-op or a collective with, you all take some time to really make sure that you have a good bylaw or membership manual document. And that's where you put all of your culture and how you deal with conflict, what happens when you terminate a member, what happens when a member chooses to terminate themselves. All of these things start in the beginning so that, as Alex mentioned, when shit hits the fan, you already wrote all of those things when you guys were all good and happy. And you don't have to worry about the moment and the emotions. And I was actually a part of a 501c4 co-op, which is a lobbying organization. And we ended up burning out. I ended up burning out. And I really wish that I would have taken the time to write our bylaws out and to write out this process, because at the end, I was so burned out that I just wanted to leave, and I didn't think about how I was leaving or how I would get compensated. And so that's why this piece is very much an important part of the process.
Yeah, I've actually been part of 2 co-ops where there was a founding member who maintained like a leadership role. I don't want to give the impression that all co-ops are like these utopic, like
They're not.
hierarchical organizations.
Conflict is.
Well, and also just like even when there's not conflict, just to be able to operate and get things happening, like, you know, management can be okay. Like management can be compassionate and democratic, and leaders can be compassionate and democratic. And so sometimes co-ops have hierarchies depending on skills and what's needed. In 2 of those co-ops, we had founders who maintained leadership positions beyond what was really like in the bylaws. And in any other business, after years and years of like poor treatment from a boss or, you know, bad financial outcomes, you either quit or you get burned out, whatever. But in those 2 cases, we fired them. The members came together and fired those problematic leaders. And let me tell you that that is a game changer. It is revolutionary. I don't know if you have it. I have a shirt from the New Economy Coalition that says, fire the bosses, free the land, elect ourselves, and build a new economy. And when people say, what do you mean fire the bosses? I'm like, I have stories to tell you about how that is possible. You know, you sometimes see really big examples of like Papa John's. He said some racist stuff and the board was like, we're firing you, right? Like every once in a while in a big company, you'll see that kind of like ethical backing to get a poor leader out of the way. But in most small businesses, which co-ops are, you know, fewer than 20 or 50 employees, in most small businesses, there's not that opportunity, and in big businesses especially, there's no opportunity for people to really respond to how they're treated at work or what they're left with to go home with, where the profits are going. So
Systems of accountability.
Yeah, so.
Let's hear another question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a follow-up. Oh, thank you. This is a follow-up to the last question, and it's for Alex, although I'm going to ask about a DAO, and I don't know if you actually had one, and I know they're on the way out, but...
Are they?
Yeah. But they're very functional for putting systems in place and having them sort of run on auto. And I'm wondering, and all of the questions was just asked and all the answers that were just given, whether the DAO makes it better or worse in terms of the hoopla, the emotional stuff, the fallout, the cleanup, all of that.
Yeah, so I can say I haven't participated.
Do you want to define a DAO?
Yeah, so DAO, this is Distributed Autonomous Organizations. It's sort of a form of organizing, particularly online initiatives using blockchain technology as a kind of mechanism for decision making and for communication among the people who are using it. So part of what was frustrating to me about the whole kind of DAO moment was the unfamiliarity with cooperative business or cooperative organizational structures and possibilities to structure the way that the DAOs get built. And there are organizations that have been doing some really interesting research around that. There's a nonprofit called the Meta Governance Project that I think has some really like good heads on this question, thinking about how to create effective governance. Because I think my impression of the DAO as a form was that it was kind of a little overdetermined by the kind of a certain kind of overconfidence that people who write software have about the power of software. This mantra that code is law. Turns out we still have laws, right? And the cooperative movement has been a movement that has been trying to organize other forms of like countercultural cooperation, but within like actually create legal frameworks for it. And so, for example, in a lot of US states, there are either employee-owned corporation statutes that you can actually file your business under, or limited cooperative associations. There's also ways that you can create limited liability companies that can run as costs. But all of this can be built into the legal infrastructure. And if you want to use, you can use any kind of software to help make your decisions. I'm a huge proponent of remote teams, and it's a big part of how we run Mirlo. We have folks all over the world that are part of that initiative. But yeah, we found our experience has been that blockchain stuff hasn't been necessary for that because we're focusing more on the governance and not on the technology of how the buttons get pushed.
Helpful though, or unhelpful? Not necessary maybe, but helpful or unhelpful?
I have not had any experiences being helped by it because I haven't been very deep down that rabbit hole. And also part of the problem too in my experience is that because it got so hyped up by the sort of cryptocurrency use case, it's really hard to have this conversation about whether it's helpful or not because blockchain is so connected to the kind of asset game, the sort of games playing that cause the cryptocurrency, ups and downs and all that, which is definitely not helpful.
Thank you. We'll have some space for more questions if they're coming, unless you have an example of exploitation in music. Yeah, we'll have more Q&A time. I don't want to keep this slide up forever, but it just feels like so important. And I'll say that what I am grateful for the transparency that is coming out of the industry now with artists like Chappell Roan at, the Grammys saying, labels, we got you, but do you got us? And there are a lot of sound bites coming from artists and managers and other folks in the music industry who are like, this Spotify situation is kind of messed up. We should be looking for alternatives. And I think a lot of people are starting to feel that, and we're really grateful to be on the ground floor of some of those alternatives. And so I think one way to really connect with this message is to think how are you already acting as a cooperative, How are you in your life, in your workplace, in your home, in your band, in your friend group? How might you already be prioritizing consent? How might you already be sharing labor really well, clearly? How might you already be sharing profits? How might you already be inclusive and oriented towards justice for workers? And how can you keep doing more of that? How can you uplift that? And that's something that I hope you take home and think about for days, weeks, years. I mean, we think about this stuff all the time, how can I make this moment more cooperative? How can I practice the skills that I have? The Americana Music Association is not a cooperative organization, but they were really stoked to have us here, which lets me know that like big players in the industry are hungry for collaborative, cooperative alternatives until they're no longer the alternatives. And that's the real point. That's the hope.
Could I just tell a little story about that? Because I just wanted to say that I came into the cooperative movement through music, and it was really the people who kind of put cooperation on the map for me were musician friends of mine in Chile. A lot of the sort of worker cooperative models have come out of South American experiences, and we're up here some of learning from a lot of what's been happening in those places. And so this idea, the word in Spanish is autogestión, which in English you could translate to like self-management, which is kind of a synonym sometimes with cooperation in terms of how we talk about it. But this idea that we run it ourselves together, we figure it out, we don't just show up for work and someone else decides what we do, we figure it out together. It was a group of jazz musicians in Chile who were trying to start their own record label because there weren't any jazz record labels in Chile. And so it was like, well, we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it ourselves. And that that DIY ethos is a really strong strain in music because as musicians, oftentimes the sounds that we're hearing them and other people aren't yet. But if we have people around us that we trust, it's like, you hear that too? Oh, okay. Then we get into being able to start to have relationships to work through it together. But for me, this idea of autogestión, of self-management, is kind of like working in the back for like probably 10 years before I learned about worker cooperatives. And then I was like, oh, that's what that was. And so again, these are processes that we can kind of find our way into over time. And I think also musicians really understand that, some of the formal systems that have developed for worker cooperation that are based on like a kind of industrial model of labor don't always work for musicians and for creative labor. And so there's a lot of creativity actually, and actually the form of cooperatives themselves are undergoing change right now because they're meeting the moment that we're living in right now. And so, that's a big part of what we're trying to do at Mirlo, is to try and kind of infuse that spirit of cooperation into a software technology startup basically, right? So we're figuring it out as we go, but creativity and the things that we learn as musicians help to propel that forward. And so this is like, for me, I know that there's people working in this space, that same creativity that's gotten you to this point can also help to find the others who are going to be building that future together.
That's right. So this is just a really great list of resources. The Cooperative Leaders in Scholarship Fellowship, fully recommend. That's a fellowship that I was a part of, and what I really enjoyed about it is that I got connected to other people that are also trying to build this world. And I think that's the most important part, is like knowing that there are others that are trying to do this and that they exist. Then there's Launch.coop and Start.coop, which are also kind of like academies. Cooperation Jackson is really great. It's in Jackson, Mississippi. And then there's the USFWC conference, which is the US Federation of Worker Co-op conference. Co-op conferences are my favorite types of conferences because you'll meet people just like us. And you'll realize, oh, I'm not crazy. Like, this
we
is...
need to put the music panel together for next
That's a great idea.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so yeah, please visit these places. Like, you're gonna feel so good knowing that there is an alternative.
Yeah. And these are links, so if you're interested, you can maybe share an email address with us and we can send this whole presentation to you. You can look at it again and click through and learn and digest and reach out to us. A few more tips, and then we'll open the space for the last questions. We've got about 10 more minutes. So, it's not just musicians and industry folks and fans. Also, it's like, how can we all be in solidarity with each other? If you're an artist, I'd say look for artist unions. They're the places that are going to help you negotiate. They're the places that are going to help you get health insurance. Our United Musicians and Allied Workers is a great advocacy organization. I think they're based in New York City, but I might be wrong.
Yeah.
They are, okay.
Yeah.
Fan Alliance, I think someone from Fan Alliance is here this week, and it's a movement of fans who are trying to support artists and create an equitable music economy, and they've got different campaigns and activities. But as a consumer of music, you know, like you have a role to play. You can connect directly. We're trying to, like, you know, take out a lot of the middle players who are extracting labor and money without really like providing enough service to whether it be like venues or artists. And so Group Muse is a worker-owned co-op that pairs people with like hosts. You can sign up to be a host, you can sign up to be a performer, and you could travel the world just finding people on Group Muse to host you for your concerts. And MOM is another one a friend of mine started. It will be cooperatively managed, but it's similarly like a music in the home. It's a house concert kind of like direct fan venue connection. And then, you know, being a discerning consumer, I think, is really important for all of us. Not just people who love to listen to music, but it's almost especially the people who are also making music and who really understand what goes into it, industry folks who are really supporting music. It matters to take an extra moment, I think, if you're gonna buy something from a band or if you're gonna buy a ticket to a show. Do you live in that city, and can you buy the money directly from the venue so the venues that we know are losing money aren't losing huge fees to Ticketmaster? If you have the option of listening to an artist on Spotify or buying their CD, go to their website and buy their CD. Go to their website and probably you can even download their music. Go to Mirlo to listen to their music. Buy their merch, buy their t-shirts, buy directly from the artists. It seems simple, but I know that some of these things aren't as convenient and we get a little bit lost and trapped in convenience. So a lot of this is a request to just take a little bit more time to be discerning as consumers. So now we will have space for Q&A. We won't tell you what that, should we tell them what that is? You can just look at that QR code and see what it is.
See where it takes you.
See where it takes you. Just see where that QR code takes you.
I see a question
Yeah,
Yeah,
there.
Can you get the
Go
mic
ahead.
back there for our
Question.
eager questioner?
Hi. Some of this, my question may be answered when I do a deep dive into what you presented here, but my daughter and I have been operating in a live music venue for about 13 years now, and I think we've done a relatively decent job of engaging everyone. We have about 45 employees, and you know, we both feel good about the involvement and dedication and building the team and all that. But I think we're always been curious. Going back into my college days, co-ops have always just been something that I've had a curiosity about. So I guess my first question is just to say, what live music venues might you give as an example of someone who has successfully operate that way? I mean, because I know that I've looked into, I used to kind of run a nonprofit, so there's times that I know of venues, like there was one in Phoenix, a jazz club, recently, the Nash.
Yeah,
And so, I haven't done a deep dive into that, but I'm curious just about those questions. Like, I want my daughter to be able to do this as long as she wants to be able to with the right team. So are there examples of what you would say, I really admire what they have done as a co-op or as whatever format that you would want to say?
Yeah.
You gotta connect with Olive, right?
Yeah, I wish all of us were.
Are you from Nashville, or were you one who raised you? Columbus,
Columbus,
Ohio,
cool. Not too far.
Well, if you're here long enough, check out Dark Matter Collective. That is Nashville's co-op venue space, and I wish that Olive could have been here with us today, but
How long has Dark Matter existed?
I don't know. Does anyone know how long Dark Matter has been around? I think it's been a long time. The website says enduring, that they are the enduring all ages venue in Nashville, which
At least 10 years.
at least 10 years, yeah. So I would check out Dark Matter Collective here. I also think sometimes in co-ops, I have seen in my 15 years being a cooperative developer and geek, I have seen the number of co-ops almost double in the country. But we're talking like from 450 to like 800. So not huge numbers. And so I think with co-ops, if you're looking for similar examples, it can be really helpful to look outside of music at other brick and mortar spots. So I would look at bookstores, and I would look at, what are some other good like retail venue type, can you think of any?
Where my mind was going was there is a sort of a coalition in the UK that called the Music Venue Trust that is doing some good work around figuring out how to adapt, not necessarily to organize as worker cooperatives necessarily, but to figure out how to adjust to the landscape where so much of the venue landscape is now getting, like, individual club owners like you and your daughter getting, when you're done, getting bought out by a big conglomerate that is then squeezing everybody else and extracting the value to places that aren't local, right? So there's a lot of people who are seeing that dynamic playing out and trying to just figure out how to do it differently. It seems to me like the coalition in the UK is pretty far along in that conversation, and would be a good, a place to just ask, like, how are they thinking about governance, and like how are they doing their bylaws. And the other thing that came to mind is that one of the engines of that number going up for cooperatives is cooperative conversions, right? So when, which is, when something has been started as a solo business owned by one person, but that person then sells the business to the employees, and there's a process in which both the ownership stakes in a financial sense and also the governance of the organization moving forward kind of codifies the good feelings that have been operating informally because you haven't needed those things to change. But then when a founder leaves, it's a game changer for any kind of thing. And so thinking about getting that stuff in writing and thinking carefully about it. And I know a lot of the worker cooperative organizations and lenders, there's ways to get financing for it. Those are out there, and there's folks who are, there to support specifically that kind of transition. So those resources are out there too.
We have seen a really successful wave of retiring business owners who know the value of their workforce. They know the value that their business brings to the community, and they don't want to see it close. They don't want to see it be bought out by somebody. That is something that Sonia Erika and I have a lot of experience in supporting conversions. And so if you are starting to feel curious about that, we would love to hear your thoughts and to learn more about your venue. And I'm gonna be driving back through Columbus, Ohio on my way home to Ithaca. So maybe you can let me know, maybe I can come visit you, we are in it. We're in the movement specifically to support folks who are already doing great work and wanna, really magnify that work for generations to come. That's the goal. There's a really great example in New York that is a little bit of a case study for co-op conversions at Ward Lumber. It's a 4-generation family-owned lumber company. Got to Jay Ward, and his daughters didn't want to keep running the company, and they have 100 employees. And they are the only lumber company. It would have been devastating to many employees and their families and to the community as a whole to lose that business. And so they took the effort to become a co-op, and now all those people are owners who are sharing in the profits and sharing in decision-making, and it's been really, really successful. There are lots of happy endings to co-ops for sure.
And for your daughter, it might be really nice to be able to share responsibility with other people so that she's not the only one that has to hold all of that. Because what I've seen from friends that own coffee shops is that they have to be there the whole time. And they really wish that they had support of other co-owners so that they could, go on vacation or, take a break. So yeah, I definitely feel like your daughter and you would really appreciate the co-op model.
Any other questions? Yeah, questions, thoughts?
It seems like bands like Roger Klein and the Peacemakers, Collective Soul now, and Ani DeFranco are kind of examples of artists that are doing what you're talking about. And it would be very interesting to see them get involved with a venue, a booking agent, and form a sort of a mini co-op that supported their structure.
Yep.
Because I think Collective Soul learned, after they got completely reamed by Atlantic, holy shit, we put out our record, we get way more money.
Yeah,
exactly. I figured that out after all the labels came over. She was like, but dude, I'm making twice as much as you people.
Yeah.
And Roger Klein's a perfect example. I mean, he bought a bus, He has a regional following. He does a festival down in Mexico every year. So I think this is an incredibly exciting movement, and I think the music industry can be something that can help lead it.
Yeah.
That's right.
We would love for you to get on the bandwagon with us.
Yeah, we need you to lead this.
This has been the best panel I've been to.
Yay!
Thank you so
well,
much.
On that note, please be sure to say so.
Yeah, please fill out
your
your
survey.
survey.
Let them know that you loved it. You want us back. Alex, do you have a question?
No, just a comment for the gentleman from Columbus, that you could look also, for sure. Just a comment because the question was, are there good examples of like successful co-ops in the live music and event space? I think there's a lot of, even like where we're from in Milwaukee, there's a lot of cooperatively owned like restaurants, cafes, breweries, things like that, and they all have live music, some of them like multiple nights a week. So I think there's definitely, like, I'm sure, I know Ohio has like a big brewing scene and those sorts of things. And I know Columbus is a big town. There's probably like test cases in your local community of cooperatively owned like food and hospitality establishments that you could like partner with or learn from.
Right on. Yeah, I think speaking to like those bigger name artists who have always kind of had this ethos, a dream that I have, whether I'm part of building it or not, is that, one of the tenets and principles of a co-op is decentralized power. And so I see all these little like federated co-ops that are like the co-op venue or like the co-op equipment sharing thing. You know what I mean? Like, what if all the bands in your town could all chip in a little bit to hire one booking agent who could help everybody, and it's all collectively managed? Like, I think we could peel the layers on the industry back really, really far and infuse cooperativism through like a lot of the stages in the way that the industry already exists. And there is a way that the industry can operate and exist that is unknown to us. And that's really what we're trying to build here.
I think one thing that you gestured towards in your comment that I just wanted to amplify a little bit is you mentioned sort of regional movements and local kinds of movements. I do think that some of the like figuring out by doing it is going to be more possible at local and regional scales than like disrupting the whole music industry or whatever. You know what I mean? And it might be more possible in Columbus than in LA, for example. I feel like it's sort of in the cracks of things where the practicalities of how to actually do the new things start to emerge. And so I think that so much of it is logistical, and this idea, one thing that is cool about cooperation as a practice is that once you learn how to do it, you also learn how to recognize it. And that creates this possibility, like you said, of this sort of web of game recognizing game, and we don't have to like be in the same company to know, oh, you're running on you're actually doing the thing like we're doing the thing. You're not just saying you do the thing like we do the thing. You're actually doing it because we know what that looks like, and the only way to figure that out is to learn by doing, I think.
That's right. And I'll just say that Coopoly is not like Monopoly. In Coopoly, everybody wins.
Everybody works together.
And that's
it's a real game.
Actual game. So I encourage you all to play it with your friends and your family because it'll actually stimulate you and help you think about what does it mean when everybody wins instead of, what we currently have.
Yeah.
So thank you all for coming out. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you to AmericanaFest.
Yeah.